Hello everyone and welcome back to Aman Talks FPL. We're discussing gameweek 30 in this live stream. It's 10 p.m. here on a Friday here in Oz, so clearly I don't have very much going on, but no, obviously there's a lot to talk about for FPL. We've got blank gameweek 30 to discuss. I don't own Harry Kane. Do I need to get him in to captain him? Yeah, lots of things to consider. I'm hearing rumours of Rafinha out with COVID, Trent Alexander-Arnold apparently out for weeks, according to Jurgen Klopp. Yeah, it's who knows what's going to happen over the next few hours. I'm not planning to do a super long live stream, guys. I'm not feeling the best, in all honesty, so I'm just going to try keep it just to maybe 30-35 minutes, just kind of go through my team, some other general things, and maybe answer a few of your questions as well. But yeah, I think we'll keep it pretty concise today. Not really too much to speak of. I think, blank game week 30. We can also touch on the double game week announcements as well for 31 and 33. But yeah, thanks for everyone who's tuned in already. Stuart and Matt, I can see you already in the chat as well. Yeah, so it's good to have you guys there in the chat already. But yeah, we'll just get cracking, I think, straight into it. So we'll get onto my kind of a few things I wanted to discuss, my team selection and things. I see a few people in the chat also discussing Supercoach. That's right. I had to time it to make sure that I just finished watching the NRL game as well. We have survived Turbo. That is correct. But yeah, I think let's get straight into it. So I'll quickly just show how I went in game week 29. So I did play the triple captain, which was okay, but not as good as what triple captain 26 was, that's for sure. The fact that Salah didn't play combined 90 minutes was a bit frustrating, but look, at least he got a return. So look, 10 points, that's more than what I got last season. I got an 8 last season, I think it was. So look, I'll take 10 this year, times 3 into 30. Robertson really came through for me though. 18 points was a huge haul in that double game week, and my trades were I took a -4, so I took out Reece James and I took out Ramsey from Aston Villa, and I got in Kulusevski and Doherty, which were both good moves. They both paid off, especially Kulusevski, but I did also think about it, but I'm already tripled up on Spurs and I don't have Harry Kane. That's really my big decision for this coming week, is do I go into this week without Kane, because he's going to be the biggest captain this week for sure. But 114 points, that's 114 with a -4, so it's 110 net that I actually finished on. Another green arrow, so up into 4.7k, which is obviously really, really good. Really happy to be at such a good rank at this point in the year. But I am conscious that I've played like a lot of chips in the past few weeks. I played 26 wildcard, free hit 27, 28 bench boost, 29 triple captain. So I would expect the chips to help me get those green arrows. So now it's about kind of managing the rest of the season with one free hit and seeing if I can kind of hopefully stay in this top 10k, I think would be the end of the season goal. But yeah, overall, I mean, returns from Lacazette. Son was a bit disappointing, so I'm definitely going to be discussing him a little bit. Trent and Robbo, Ramsdale all coming through. Good points on the bench there with Saiss and Kilman, but it doesn't really matter so much. I was never really considering playing those two in any case. So yeah, that's a quick overview of how I went in game week 29. So I've only got the one free transfer going into game week 30. But just before I go into game week 30, we'll quickly discuss obviously the double game week announcement. So I'm a little bit slow on this. I know this came out a couple of days ago. But yeah, so we've got a confirmed double game week 31 and 33. So it's not actually in this graphic here from FPL Focal, but 31 is a double game week for Burnley and for Everton. So Burnley have like Man City and Everton, which is rough. And then Everton, I think, have West Ham, is it? And Newcastle, I want to say. I can't remember. But yeah, there's double game weeks for the pair of those teams, which might come into my transfer planning in a little bit. But I mean, both of those teams, you're not really looking to be considering. And I think when you look at the double game week schedule, so we've got Brighton, Burnley, Leicester, United, and Newcastle all with confirmed double game weeks in 33. Now, Leicester looks good there. United looks good there because of that Norwich fixture. Newcastle looks pretty decent there. And even Burnley looks okay there. So, most of those teams, Newcastle, Leicester, Burnley, United, I don't really necessarily want to have a lot of those players for the long term. So I have initially thought about free hitting that week. But I think it really does also depend on those FA Cup results. So in the section below that Oscar helpfully put together, there'd be potential double game weeks for these other teams: Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, City, and Southampton, but only depending on FA Cup results. Now, I've got the FA Cup fixtures there that are coming up this weekend. So you'd expect Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool, and then probably Palace to be the bookies' odds favourites to win those fixtures. Now, basically, if Chelsea, Man City, and Liverpool all win their games in the FA Cup, that will then postpone one of the fixtures in game week 33. So they would only have a single game week, and so they wouldn't have a double. So there would be no double then for Chelsea, Liverpool, or City if all of them win. Now, if any of them loses, then they would actually have a double game week in 33, which is why I'm not really thinking too much about free hit 33 or 36 for my own sake, just because I think any upset, say if Man City lost to Southampton, that would be a big spanner in the works, because that would mean City would have a double in 33, and I've got none, so I'd have to really start thinking about how to get in those City players. Now, if the favourites all go through, then Arsenal and Southampton would also have a double. So Arsenal would have Southampton and then Chelsea, and Southampton would have Arsenal and Burnley. And so that does help out things, because I've got 3 Arsenal already. I've got Broja, so that then automatically starts making me think maybe I don't need to, free hit 33. But that's my initial thoughts on chip strategy. There could also be blanks for Villa, Leeds, and Wolves, depending on those FA Cup results. So again, those are 3 teams that we've got a lot of players from to cover Game Week 30. So at the moment, my initial thought was free hit 33 and just run into 36 just with free transfers. But I think it really does depend on those FA Cup results, and I'm not thinking about it too much at the moment. I'm more concentrating on 30 and what I can do. And obviously a lot of the COVID and injury stuff that I'm seeing already on Twitter, just in the last half an hour basically. But yeah, so next up, I wanted to quickly discuss those 30 to 36 fixtures. Again, this will probably be a little bit more useful when we're going into more full-on chip strategy, but I thought it'd be a good overview of the picture of the fixtures, just because it also helps us, kind of see, the teams that we target for 33 or 36, should we actually consider going with free transfers or with, say, a free hit? Free transfers would suggest that the team's got good fixtures before and also after, so you're happy to keep them in your team. A free hit would be like you kind of just want them for the 1 week, but then you'd be happy to get rid of them. So Newcastle kind of fits into that bill, maybe where they've got Spurs, Wolves, not the 2 best fixtures before their double game week. Then they've got Norwich, but then it's Liverpool, City. So that they kind of fit the bill of a team you might want a free hit instead of a free transfers. A team like Chelsea is a bit different, where they've just got good long-term fixtures. So again, even other teams like Arsenal, covers game week 30, good chance of a double now in 33, decent fixtures long-term for the rest of the season. So I think having this overview, it's probably going to be a bit more helpful when we get those FA Cup results. But I was looking at this thinking about what I could maybe do in terms of shaping my chip strategy. But the more I thought about it, I was giving myself more and more of a headache. So I thought, let's just leave it for this week. I think ideally it would be good to roll a free transfer. So you might see a few people, content creators on Twitter saying, this week's a good week to roll a free transfer. Main reason is because of that uncertainty with those FA Cup results. You will definitely know by game week, I think 31, what the results of those FA Cup fixtures are. Therefore, you're going to know what the double game week landscape is going to look like for 31, 33, and we might get a better idea of 36. So I think the fact if you got 2 free transfers in 31, you can then use those transfers really effectively. If, for example, say Man City get a double in 33, and all of a sudden in 31, you're going to say, well, look, I've got 2 free transfers. Let me bring in like Foden, Cancelo, Laporte, etc. Versus if, say, for example, they don't have a double, then you might start maybe looking to dead end into some 33 players. So a lot of it can change on those FA Cup results. So I think having those, those 2 free transfers in 31 would be really helpful. So that is something I've thought about. I have got enough players this week to fill, a decent amount of players. I've got about 10 people, I think, but I just don't have Kane. So I'm kind of thinking, should I roll the free transfer? Should I just try go for Kane? It's been doing my head in. I will admit that. But yeah, hopefully this is somewhat valuable as well. I think next up, I was going to quickly look at predicted points just for game week 30, just because anyone who's considering, say, a free hit, or you're looking to really, really target this week to chase potential upside. I don't necessarily think there's that much upside in this week overall. It's just because a lot of the teams a lot of the teams are versing each other. And if you're trying to field a team of 11, you're going to have probably attackers coming up against some of your defenders. So it kind of caps them, how much maximized points there could be. Just because, obviously if your attack scores against your defender, there's no chance of a clean sheet for your defender, and kind of vice versa as well. So it's a really tough one, I think, to really nail down the best picks in terms of, or just maximizing your points overall. But there's a few standouts. I think Kane, Son, Kane 100% I think is the standout pick for this week. If you don't have him, raise your hand. 100% will be the most captain player as well. I can very easily see his effective ownership being over like 150%. Now, this table I thought would be a bit more useful for maybe picking out a bit of, some differentials. Say, for example, if you are on a free hit. So I think the Leicester players will be less owned, like a Barnes or a Maddison. The issue with them is their potential for like just their expected minutes, just because Barnes did start in that their European fixture. And so he has Brendan Rodgers previously rotated the likes of Tielemans and Ndidi in the Premier League. So I think they're definitely prioritising that competition. They don't have much to play for in the Premier League, but they can still win that European competition. So that's my only... On a free hit, it's okay, because you can just have them for the week. A transfer in, I did think about it, but it gave me a little bit less confidence whether I want to be carrying them. They do have a lot of doubles coming up, don't get me wrong, but I thought maybe you'd be better off to get them in, say, like 33. So I think the Leicester picks could be a good free hit differential. I like Tony as well. It looks like with Christian Eriksen in that Brentford team, delivers good set pieces, good set piece threat, and we know Leicester are very poor at defending those set pieces, and I think Tony has really benefited off that as well. And then most of these other names are pretty standard, like your Reguilon, like a Rafinha, Lacazette, Saka, etc. So it kind of just shows you a lot of these popular players are already quite highly owned, so that kind of shows a lack of upside. But yeah, I think if you are on a free hit, there's a few picks in there, potentially like a Tielemans or a Tony that could be differentials. One player who's not on this list who could be a cheeky one is Johnny from Wolves. So if these Rafinha rumours are true, and it looks like he's potentially out with COVID, if he wasn't playing, I would expect an even better chance of a clean sheet for Wolves. So that might actually then sway you to going with, say, like a double Wolves defence if you're on a free hit. So that could also be a strategy to go for. And someone like Johnny, playing at right back because there's no Semedo, I think he's 4.5 mil. Could be a very cheeky differential, or like even an Ait Nouri as well, if you've got a feeling that he will start as well. So I'll quickly take a look at the chat. I know I'm speeding through quite a bit, guys, as well. I do apologise. So someone's asked, is any Leicester defend nailed? No, that's the problem. It's so hard because Sionchu we probably thought was nailed, but he didn't play in Europe. So not quite sure what's happening there. Amati could be a risk potentially if James Justin comes back. Fofana was in the squad as well for that European fixture. So it's so hard to say if any Leicester defender is nailed. I thought Sionchu would be the most nailed, but again, I think my confidence in them is still not the best. So, and even then, defensively, they haven't been looking that good. So I did think about that idea. I don't think I'll be going for any Leicester defender though. Our planner is in the chat. Welcome. Good evening to you as well. Stuart, is it confirmed that Rafinha is out with COVID, or is it just a rumour at this stage? I believe it's just a rumour. We'll have a quick look at Twitter in a little bit, but I think it's just a rumour at this stage, so nothing confirmed yet. And yet Trent hamstring. So on Twitter, it seems as though from Klopp's press conference, he said that Trent could be out for weeks. Now, part of me thinks, is that just to kind of protect him during international break, keep him fresh for like Man City in gameweek 32. But that's definitely one that's we've got to keep an eye on. Again, that shows the power of rolling 2 free transfers going into an international break as well. COVID could always, rear its ugly head, as we're seeing potentially with Rafinha. Players flying around the globe. COVID could just strike, and then all of a sudden you might be like down 2 or 3 players, and then all of a sudden you might be taking mass hits, whereas the 2 free transfers can kind of help navigate that a little bit. So there is definite merit, I think, in saving those 2 free transfers if you can this week. If Trent was out for a few weeks, I would definitely shake things up, because I think his value gone up so much. To buy him back would take a lot of money to buy him back, but I think the fact that there's not much time left in the season as well, was it like 10 weeks now? You could say value is less important, and I think you've got perfect replacements there as well. If you want to sell Trent, you've got Cancelo right there. You've got Reece James, Rudiger, Robertson if you haven't got Robertson. So there's lots of good options that you could consider with a Trent downgrade. But yeah, that one, I haven't really given that much thought about that. That's only fresh news to me as well. Just quickly finishing up that Game Week 30 discussion for anyone who is, say, looking at a free hit. I did put together a quick free hit draft. Funnily enough, I didn't have Rafinha in it. Obviously, that now looks like good. A good thing that I didn't, because he could be out with COVID. But so the team I've gone for is triple Spurs, triple Arsenal, I think pretty standard. Got the Wolves defender in Johnny, as I mentioned, could be a bit of a differential punt. I have got Barnes in there just on the chance that if he does play, look, it's a good fixture. I think against Brentford, I feel like that fixture's got goals in it. Coutinho, it's a bit awkward coming up against your own goalkeeper. Same with Matty Cash. But I've just chosen the defenders who've got some attacking upside, because it's hard to predict the clean sheets. So at least go with the ones who've got that attacking upside. Hence why I've gone with Matty Cash. I haven't actually seen him in that many free hit drafts. So he's been killing it recently. So, him playing so far forward potentially there could be opportunities there for him, even against Arsenal, who are pretty good defence. And then the front three, I think, speak for themselves. Tony, Lacazette, and Kane. Could consider Jimenez, but I think Lacazette and Arsenal probably show more in attack than Jimenez. So, yeah, I think the free hit draft is pretty template, I'd say. In terms of having a Wolves defender, having Tony, having triple Spurs, triple Arsenal, etc. But there's a couple of different players there. Like I think Cash and Johnny are the main differentials there. So yeah, anyone who's on a free hit, I'd maybe consider going with this draft. I'd probably do it myself, but I overall don't see much appeal free hitting this week. The upside just seems so capped. The way that the fixtures have kind of fallen, there's no fixture that looks like a banker for like, yes, that's 100%. You can see like a 3-4-0 for that team. It's so hard to predict. Therefore, I think the upside is limited. So I would definitely try to save a free hit if you could. If, for example, saving it for like a 33 or a 36, maybe even a 37 double, looks much more powerful in my eyes. So that's all I wanted to show for kind of prepared stuff. I think what I'll just do is I'll quickly just get onto my team as well. Just kind of go through what I'm thinking with you guys. And yeah, maybe you all can help me out as well, because I'm definitely struggling on, not struggling, but having a good think about what I need to do. So before all of this Rafinha Trent news, I would have had 10 players this week. So I would have had Son captain, I would have had Ramsdale in goal, double Wolves defence, which could be good now against the Leeds without Rafinha potentially. I would have had Saïs and Kilman with Doherty, Kulusevski, Saka, Rafinha, Son, Jimenez and Lacazette. So I think pretty template. But there's one glaring omission, which is no Harry Kane, right? So when I first posted my team on Twitter, most people suggested to roll the free transfer for good reason as well. They thought it's low upside game week. The Spurs West Ham fixture could be tough to call, but I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, West Ham have just come from playing like big minutes against Seville in the Europa League. Kane is looking in unreal form. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Son is as good of an option as Kane right now. In hindsight, on the wild card in 26, I wish I'd gone with Kane instead of Son. It's easy to say that now, but he's been absolutely killing it. The underlying stats are better. The eye test, everything's better with Kane at the moment. So I didn't do it last week. I didn't do this Son to Kane swap last week, just because I think the thing with Kane is that at his price, you want to be captaining him. Last week, Salah was the obvious captain with a double, so I didn't feel as bad not going with Kane. This week, though, it feels different. It feels really different this week. You know that he is going to be the most captain player. And so it would be from -4, taking out Son for Kane. And I would have to take out Son because I've already got Doherty and Kulusevski as well. And I'll probably be wanting to keep both of them. So, yes, Son would have to make way for Kane if I wanted to get him. And so that would be from -4, potentially to get Kane captain. So just to quickly show you guys what I was thinking. So this is my initial thoughts. My initial thoughts were Son to Barnes. And then Jimenez to Kane. Now, again, it's not ideal in the sense that I'm taking out Jimenez, who's got Leeds. I would take out Jimenez over Lacazette just because it looks like Wolves might have a blank in 33. And I prefer Arsenal's long-term fixtures, and they also have a better chance of a double in 33. And because I'm not yet committed to a 33 free hit or a 36 free hit, I thought I'll just take out Jimenez and Wolves. I've got more faith in Arsenal attack as well. So that was my initial thought. That would have been for a -4, and I would have had Kane captain then. So it doesn't feel great. I kind of want to present this kind of my way of thinking just because it might be helpful for others who might be in a similar situation. So I've seen people on Twitter say, oh, if I were to sell Son for Kane this week and then Son banged and then Kane blanked, you'd be really annoyed. I completely agree with that, but I think, what would I be more annoyed about? Would I be more annoyed if I kept Son captain, he blanked, Kane banged with his massive effective ownership? Or if I got in Kane, Son banged, and Kane blanked, and I'd made that switch? I'd be annoyed that I took Son out for Kane, but it's kind of a risk management. I know it's really lame. People might not approve of that kind of way of thinking, but I would feel less annoyed if I think I went for Kane and he blanked and Son banged. And the thing is, I actually don't see Son going big without Kane doing decent as well. The way that Kane is playing, he's so involved. He's in amongst all the big chances for Spurs. Even if Son does well, I've got a feeling that Kulusevski's either going to assist him or it's going to be Kane. So I'm kind of okay with doing that switch, I think. But now all of the stuff's happening with Rafinha and Trent, it made me think, should I just roll? Should I just roll this week? Should I just run this team out for this week, put Son as captain, just cop the massive hit potentially from Kane and hope to God that he doesn't do well. And then what that would mean is that next week I'd have 2 free transfers, right? So then what I would do is I'd bring back all my Liverpool players. Now, again, this is an interesting one. If Trent's out, if he was out, look, potentially if it was for weeks, maybe I'd just take him out for a Cancelo, for example. That would be for one move. Maybe this is not planned. I'm just thinking out loud here, and that leaves 2.2 mil in the bank. And then what I would do there is Salah would be the obvious captain as well, and then I could just do that and just leave it. Or what I could do if I wanted to be aggressive with my 2 moves, take out Says for a Reece James. And all of a sudden I'm thinking that's a pretty nice backline, and I'd probably bench maybe Rafinha if he was still out. I don't know. That's one initial thought, and that's the benefit of having the 2 frees, is that I can bring in a Cancelo and a James if, say, for example, Trent's out long term, without taking a hit, right? Or, for example, if I had the 2 moves, maybe if Trent was fit, I can use that to maybe bring in someone like a Weghorst just to get some double game week 31 coverage, and also to free up some funds. So that's something on the cards as well. And that frees up about 2.2 mil in the bank doing that as well. And then that means I could probably take out one of my Wolves boys for either Cancelo or Reece James, and that lets me keep Trent. So there's still ways that I can still get into those big defenders at the back without taking hits. That's the kind of power of having those 2 free transfers. But I'm really scared of Kane this week. I'm really scared of Kane this week. So it's a tough one. I'm really not 100% sure what I was doing. I think beginning of the week, I was thinking I'll do the switch. Midway through the week, I thought, I think I'll just roll. I'll just keep the 2 free transfers for the international break, and then kind of manage maybe just cop some pain this week, and then hopefully that helps me for longer term. But then I'm going back now to thinking maybe it's better to go for Kane again. I don't know. So another option I did think of was potentially going Son out for Gordon from Everton. Now, it doesn't really make sense in the fact that Gordon's not playing this week, but it's more about what it lets me do in future weeks. So I'd still take out Jimenez then for Kane. That leaves me 3 mil in the bank, and I'd be captaining Kane. Now, that looks a little bit strange in the sense that I've taken out 2 playing players for just 1 playing player, but it's more that next week it means Gordon's got the double. So over the 2 weeks, he's got the 2 fixtures. So it's not necessarily losing a fixture, if that makes any sense. And then what that means is that for this week, with the 1 free transfer, 3 mil in the bank, it means I can take out Kilman or Saiss out for Cancelo if I wanted to. You can kind of see where I'm thinking in terms of who are my main targets for 31. And that means I've got 1 double game week player in Gordon, and I can bring in someone like a Cancelo as well. So I think my moves won't change much in 31. I think I'll still try to find ways to take out one of my Wolves defenders for like a Cancelo or for a Reece James. I think depending on how the double game week 33 looks. If, for example, Chelsea get the double, I'd probably bring in James. If City get the double, then I'll probably bring in a Cancelo, probably one or the other. Or in that alternate scenario where, for example, if I had the 2 frees and Trent was out, maybe I could actually get Cancelo and James. So that's my current thinking at the moment. I would be really, really keen to see what you guys think in the live chat as well about the whole Son versus Kane thing, because I'm thinking long term I probably would want Kane. So for example, looking ahead to say fixtures in game week 31. So let me just quick toggle. So game week 31 is okay for captaincy because Liverpool have got Watford, and so I'd probably just captain Salah. Spurs do have a good fixture at home to Newcastle, but I think for captaincy purposes I would stick with Salah. The problem is actually game week 32. So obviously in this game week, Man City and Liverpool play each other. So I know Salah did well against City in the previous fixture earlier in the season, but I don't think Salah's in quite as good form as what he was then. I mean, that might sound crazy, but I think at that point in that particular period of time early in the season, he was just on fire. I don't quite think he's at that level at the moment. So I probably wouldn't captain him against Man City. Looking at some of those other fixtures, it's really the Spurs fixture that stands out. Spurs away to Aston Villa. Chelsea have got Southampton. Maybe I could captain someone like a Reece James if I've got him. Maybe an Arsenal option. Maybe I could captain someone like Saka. But I think Kane probably is a standout captain in 32. And so my thinking was, if he's going to be a captain option in 30 and then potentially 32 as well, is it worth then taking the -4 if it's for captaincy purposes? And I think it probably is. But it's a really tough one. It's a really, really tough. I can see Slaps in the chat has just said Kane in your opinion. Look, I'm not doubting at all. I think that Kane is the better option of Son and Kane, like 100%. Not disputing that. It's more about, I'm just trying to weigh in my head the benefit of, say, a Kane captain this week, kind of managing my EO but taking the -4, and then also meaning I'm going to probably have to take further hits in the next couple of game weeks to bring in the likes of, say, James, Cancelo, and maybe plan for those future double game weeks? Or is it a case of maybe just taking the hit this week, having the 2 frees for future game weeks, and then going from there? I think my gut says go the Kane route. I think this season has told me that being conservative and rolling, look, when you can roll, it's been great, but I feel like the hits have paid off, more or less. I think the hits have paid off for most people. From what I've seen on Twitter, my own experiences when I've taken hits more or less this season, it just seems that the variance has always been on the side of those who've taken the hits. So, for example, I look at this week and I see if I haven't captained Kane and he scores a brace, I'm going to get punished. Even if Son returns, I'm still going to get punished. Because Kane's going to be so highly captained. If I go the opposite way, take the -4, Kane captain, he blanks, Son gets a goal, for example, yes, it'll hurt, but I still feel like I'm more comfortable moving forward. I feel like I've got the option that I'd prefer. And so I'm kind of thinking, just do it. Which makes you think then, okay, if I'm going to do it, if I'm going to take out Jimenez for Kane, I'm going to take out Son, I'll get 7.8 mil in the bank, so I've got money to play with, but I'm conscious that I want to be keeping some left in reserve to go from, say, like your Saiz to like your Cancelo, Reece James. So a player around the 6.5 mil max would have been who I'd gone for. So say, for example, if I went for Barnes, just to kind of maybe more capitalize on this particular game week, what I thought of for next week for Kane captain is in game week 31, to raise money, if I did actually want to go for a Cancelo or James, I might have to take out like a Broja or like even a Lacazette, but it doesn't feel ideal. This is the problem with going with Barnes this week, is that I don't have much in the bank. I've only got 1.3, so I can take out Saiz for Reece James, but I can't for Cancelo. But I'm just thinking now with this Trent news, maybe that means I can just do the Barnes move, and that means maybe potentially Trent could just be the placeholder for Cancelo instead of trying to make money elsewhere. So I think I'm going to have to give it a think a little bit more. I'm going to have to digest some of these press conferences as well to see what it looks like with the Trent news, even with Rafinha. Maybe we should run a scenario with Rafinha. If we find out, let me reset this. Okay. Yeah, if we find out Rafinha's out, I don't really think it would change my plans too much, because if my ultimate goal is to get Kane, I have to take out Son for it. So, I mean, if he's out, it probably means taking another -4 to a playing player. It makes it more worthwhile. The thing with Rafinha is that they still have a decent few fixtures after 30. Southampton and Watford. I think ideally, if I can hold him for that, would be fine. The obvious replacement at his price would probably be like a Harvey Barnes, right? The thing with Leicester is that, yes, they played this week, but the fixtures in 31-32 are okay. United away is not the best, and then Crystal Palace is fine. But the 33 double looks good, Newcastle, Everton. But the problem is just the rotation factor, Is B-Rog going to rotate in the Premier League? But say, for example, Rafinha was out. Maybe I could still do the same moves. Take out Rafinha for Barnes instead. And then, okay, this would be for a -8, which sounds a bit crazy, but I'd have to free up 2.7 mil from Son. So 8.2 mil in the bank gives me more money to play with, but realistically, I don't think there's that many options to be going for at the moment. So, look, if I wanted to consider someone who's playing this week, like I wouldn't go for a Wolves midfielder. I wouldn't go for any Leeds midfielder because I think Rafinha is the only viable asset. I've already got treble Arsenal, so I can't really go for another Arsenal player. If I wanted to go for a Villa player, I mean, I could go for Coutinho, but the problem is that Villa don't have the best fixtures moving forward. They won't have the double in 33, so to me it doesn't make sense to be bringing in a Villa player. And then it's Leicester Brentford. I'd already be getting Barnes this way, and then Brentford maybe I can get like an Eriksen. But even Brentford don't have the best fixtures, I believe, moving forward. So if I have a quick look, so yeah, it's Chelsea, West Ham, Watford, Spurs, United. It's just not an ideal run, and they don't have a double in 33. So again, free transfer. I don't think I'd be going for a Brentford player. West Ham maybe, but Bowen would have been the option, but he's not fit. So, and Spurs I've already got Kulusevski. So that's the thing. Who would I go for? I don't think there's a great many options in midfield for this week that I want to cover this week, but also want to hold moving forward, which is why I thought of maybe just going with Gordon, just because I know he's got a double in 31 and it frees up some funds. You know, he's a nice cheap enabler at 4.5 mil, and I'm not losing a fixture because in this scenario I'm taking out Jimenez, Son and Rafinha. If the assumption is true that Rafinha's got COVID, then I'd only have Son and Jimenez with the fixtures, and I'm bringing in Barnes and Kane with the fixtures. So I'm going 2 for 2 in terms of fixtures. So I'm not losing any fixtures with this -8. Look, a -8 doesn't feel ideal, but it just means I've got quite a bit more money in the bank to play with, which means next week, you know, I've got a lot of money. I've got a double already there in Gordon, West Ham and Burnley away, which is decent. And I've got that money to do big upgrades. You know, I can do Size or Kilman to Cancelo or James. But yeah, this Trent news. Let's have a quick look on Twitter, actually. Let's see if there's anything's come out with this, because I think I really want to know about this Trent news because I can see Planet, I can see your team right there. Let's check Fantasy Football Scout, because they normally post the press conference updates. Okay, let's see. This is something on Chelsea. So they've got Reece James, Hudson-Odoi and Christensen uncertain. They're in training but not yet in full training. Okay. So it doesn't sound like it might not be a case where James is fit for the FA Cup, but he might be back for 31 based on that. But again, it doesn't even seem like he's necessarily completely nailed on. Or sorry, not nailed on, but like recovered from injury. Yeah, again, I can see this quote. Jared Bowen was probably out until after the international break. That kills him as an option. Klopp, here we go. This is what we want to find out. Okay, so, yeah, this is the quote that I saw as well. So it said, Trent is out with a hamstring. He cannot be part of England as well. No good news. We'll see how long that takes. Klopp confirmed that Alexander-Arnold is looking at weeks out. Like weeks, like let's have a look at the Liverpool fixtures. So like what is like weeks? It's so ambiguous, right? What is weeks? Is it 2 weeks? Look, if it was 2 weeks, today's what, the 18th of April, 18th of March. So 2 weeks would mean he'd be back basically just in time for that. He'd be back for Man City basically. And he could be back for that for the Champions League fixture as well. So he might miss Watford. So look, if he misses Watford, if it's just Watford, I think you can afford to bench him, just because if we looked ahead to 31, you know, there was good fixtures still in that week. You know, at least in my own team, you know, I can switch him for size. It's fine. I think you can afford to bench Trent, because I think you're going to want Trent moving forward as well, if Liverpool especially do have doubles in 33. And with the title race on, you can see there being limited rotation. So I think, yeah, Trent would be someone I'd still want to keep long term. I don't think I necessarily want to bomb him out. But if, for example, that injury looks worse and worse, then maybe it's a case of actually taking him out for a Cancelo. But yeah, it seems like the way that quote sounds, to me it sounds like get him safe from the international break, don't let him play that, and then have him back ready for Man City, because that's the game. That's the money game, right? And then this quote on Salah. Salah felt his foot again a little bit after the game, so probably the same injury he had prior to the Arsenal fixture. On top of that, we have some other bits and bobs and stuff like this, so we have to wait. Yeah, so Klopp not really giving too much away there. I mean, look, if Salah was out, that would be a completely different kettle of fish. I would be taking out Salah, probably to fund Kane. But yeah, that's interesting stuff. In terms of the Rafinha COVID news, I mean, we'll have a quick look for it. but it's only been rumors at this point in time. Like, it's only seen screenshots. So these are the screenshots that I saw as well. So I have no idea where this thread originated from. I don't know who they're replying to, but a few people were saying, oh, apparently Rafinha's got COVID, Rumi's got COVID. So I think the benefit is they're the first fixture of the game week. So any of you guys in the UK probably had a much better time to watch that and get the early team news. For us in Oz, the deadline's at 5:30 a.m. It might just mean having to wake up at 5 a.m. to check any early team news. But yeah, if Rafinha's out, I mean, the thing is, if he's out with COVID and it's only, say, a week, he'd probably be back for 31 and 32, which is Southampton and Watford. So I don't necessarily have to take him out. I could just bench him this week, in all honesty. But yeah, it would mean obviously losing another player. But it's a tough one. It's a tough one. But yeah, in terms of my team, I mean, I know I'm very ambiguous. I don't really know too much about what I'm doing at the moment. I hope I was clear enough in terms of my reasoning. I think I'm leaning towards going with Kane. I think it either would be Son for Barnes and then Jimenez to Kane, or Son to Gordon to free up extra funds and then Jimenez to Kane. But with this Rafinha news, it could be a combination of Rafinha, Son and Jimenez out for Kane, Barnes and Gordon. It could be something like that. But those are the three main kind of players I'm looking at just to help cover for the next few weeks. But yeah, I think I'm leaning towards going for Kane. I think he's the one who I want long term. I feel like I just kind of need to rip the band-aid off. I don't want to be too passive. I think there is a time to be passive and roll free transfers. Look, it could be this week as well. I'll try to post before deadline because I'm really uncertain at the moment. But that's kind of those are my thoughts at the moment. I think I'm going to go for Kane. I think I'm going to take out Son, get in Kane, captain him, sleep more peacefully at night knowing that I've got that EO protection. I've got the better asset probably long term as well. And then, yeah, maybe take a punt on someone like a Barnes this week. Maybe does well against Brentford. Or maybe just go for a Gordon, just to keep him there to put in place with the double in 31. That's what I'm thinking at the moment, guys. I can't really see too many questions in the chat as well. It's already been 40 minutes, so I'm probably just going to end it there. Not keep it too long. Just kind of give you an overview of kind of gameweek 30, future double game weeks, and what I'm thinking moving forward. I wasn't planning too far ahead, only up until around gameweek 31, 32, just because I think those FA Cup results are going to have such a big bearing on our chip strategies and transfer plans. So yeah, very torn. Could be rolling 2 free transfers. Could be taking -4, maybe even a -8 if Rafinha is out. I'll post on Twitter and YouTube just before deadline what my final team is. But yeah, those are my thoughts at the moment. Probably going to end the stream there, guys. I'm feeling quite tired at the moment. It's almost 11 o'clock here in Oz. So I'll probably end it there. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Hopefully you found that useful. Probably take a bit more of a break as well in the international break, but there will be videos as well come closer to gameweek 31 and any interesting news and strategy stuff that I can do as well in that time. I'll try my best to do that as well. But yep, going to end it there. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you all in the next one.